Good evening, and thank you for joining the Voice of Many podcast with your host, Yolanda, and my host, co-host, sidekick, Vanessa. Thank you. We have a really great show for you today. A guest who is taking a man's point of view in a relationship to a whole different level. He is, how do you say it? He's going to explain to us the man's point of view and making him a better man in a relationship with a woman. And a lot of times we don't hear that. And women, we know, we say men are hard to come by, the good man is hard to find. Well, he actually is one who can help empower men to be the best that they can be and help attract the right kind of woman in a relationship to be in their lives. So he's written many books, did podcasts, and he's put all of his knowledge and his resources together from being in the US Navy, traveling and being able to know women, getting to know women, and know how women work, what we expect, things we like. So without further ado, Lopaze Lasane, also known as AKA Sharp Game. How are you doing, sir?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure having you. Pleasure having you. So we're going to jump into it and just take the bull by the horns here. And I want to know, what matters more than love in a relationship?
I would say respect, because without respect, things usually fall apart in the long term. Because if you get, let's say, if the relationship is based on just love, it's not gonna last very long, because everyone has their own definition of love, what love is to them.
Right.
And I think that with respect should be like the foundation of the relationship. And you have to know your role within the relationship. That should be the foundation. But if it's based on how you feel could change next week, 6 months, 2 years. And most of the time, if people say, if they feel and change how they feel about you, and the relationship will broke down, and they'll stop doing what they was doing in the relationship. So that's why I say respect should be first, and everything else usually take care of itself after that.
Well, I know too. I had to learn, and I think it's hard for women. I'm going to speak on the woman's as a woman now, especially a very independent women that are out there. When we are so self-driven, we tend to, especially even, I know in my case, being an only child, where the woman had to have the dominant role as far as taking care of the bills, taking care of the house, taking care of the children, taking care of herself, that where the man was there in the waiting. So whenever it comes to respect, being the only child, I know it took me longer to understand how certain things really bothered men. And they saw it as being disrespectful for us as women, being independent, being used to being the breadwinner. We saw it as just a regular part of life, our everyday normal routine. And can you, how you say, it makes it real hard on men in general, whenever you have that dominant, that powering woman, that where we think the man is weak, he just really wants that respect that you're referring to.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, in a situation like that, where like if you're the only child, or maybe you're in a family and your parents put most of the responsibility on the oldest. What usually happens is a lot of women will focus on, just being responsible, doing what their parents want them to do. And they don't realize that men don't really care about a lot of that stuff. They don't really care about education and your job and your bank account and all that stuff. And women, they take on the leadership role within their family, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't have two leaders in the same household if
That's
you
true.
put a man and a woman. So in a situation like that, a woman would have to deprogram herself,
Yeah.
and kind of like strip down and kind of take out, do stuff, I guess, figure out or learn from somebody else what works within a
Yeah.
relationship in a
Mm-hmm.
situation like that.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And I think too, that's why we have still today so many women that are single,
Yeah.
or they wait so long in life before they get married.
Yeah.
And then it's harder on the men too.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, because a lot of times, a lot of guys won't say when a woman is being too masculine or whatever. They'll just cut her off and move on.
Mhm.
But a lot of times, some guys, if he's patient enough, will, he'll be like, hey, you should do this. You should think about doing this and think about doing that. But some guys, they'll be like, hey, I don't want to do this. I'll just move on. It shouldn't. It usually happens that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And as women, we'll say that, oh, he's scared of me. Men are scared of me, because I am this way. And really, from what you're saying, and it coming from a man's point of view, that's not really the case.
No, they just don't want to. I mean, you got to think about it. When you leave the house and you go out in the world, you're fighting, and you're in competition with everybody else, and then you don't want to have to come home and you're
Yeah,
not doing the
competition with the
same thing.
woman.
Yeah, so that has a lot to do with it. Then you have some guys, they just get tired.
Yeah.
They'll be like, I just want peace of mind. I don't want to fight and go back and forth. So they'll just start traveling and go somewhere else in another country and meet some other woman. That's the exact opposite of what his experience has been.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, I know Ness, I'm jumping all over the place. Do you think that's why a lot of men go to international brides?
Yeah, it's like I said. I think a lot of guys, I know a lot of guys go to places like Colombia, the DR, Brazil, South Africa. It's because they just tired, and they don't know what to do because a lot of guys don't fellowship with other guys, and and plus a lot of guys are embarrassed to talk about their struggles and their failures with relationships. That's kind of looked down upon amongst guys. They don't like talking about their struggles and their failures and all that stuff or whatever. But the thing is, when I was growing up, it was the exact opposite. People used to, if they needed help, guys would say, hey, I need help with this, or somebody can do this and that. But today it's kind of like every man for himself. If he can't figure it out on his own, he just say, forget about it. I'll just go somewhere else. And then they might have a better experience or they might not, Sad but true.
Wow.
For a lot of men, including my husband, I've heard it's hard to date being the nice guy because sometimes they're told, you're too nice, or you're just,
Weak.
Weak or not my type because you're not this rugged kind of guy or very masculine.
Mhm.
So why do nice guys have such a hard time dating a woman?
I think a lot of guys that come off as nice, I think they feel like they have to be like another person or be a certain type of way around women.
Mm.
And that's not really the case. And see, a lot of times when you come off that way, you kind of give women, you allow women to kind of do the same thing and play the same little game, and they go back and forth, and it doesn't really go anywhere. You know, it's kind of like manipulation on both sides if the guy comes off like that. Because, I mean, us as men, we're supposed to be the leaders, you know? So a lot of guys kind of pick that up. A lot of times we pick it up while we're growing up. We probably saw that when we was, you know, maybe his dad was doing the same thing to his mom. So, and a lot of people aren't comfortable in their own skin. They feel like, hey, you know, I ain't good enough, so I gotta pretend to be somebody else. And then after a while, you know, the relationship falls apart, and it just goes nowhere, you know?
Yeah. That's true. Go ahead, Vanessa.
No, I'm just like, that's sad because I've heard that from a lot of guys, like, I'm just too nice, or maybe I've been told I'm too nice. And I'm like, I don't know what the issue is. And most of the time it's the woman is too overpowering or too demanding or wanting too much, or expectations are way too high, instead of just, you know, being there with him, going through the motions and supporting them as they go along. That's where a lot of them are like, I'm not getting the support, or I'm not getting, you know, or being told, you know, thank you for what you're doing. I appreciate you. Just like how they might be saying that to them, but they're not getting it reciprocated back. So I think, like, if someone's saying it to you, most of the time, they also want to hear you say that back to them and be respectful and, you know, appreciate each other. Because even if it might seem very small to you, it might be something very big to the other person, especially to a man. I personally know, like, even with my husband, he appreciates if I tell him, you know, I'm proud of you. I appreciate what you're doing. Even though it might be something small, I do appreciate it. Because if I wasn't getting, you know, how you treat me at all, like, I should tell you that I appreciate it. So, you know, like, you're doing what you're supposed to do. Like, and I appreciate everything you do. And some guys aren't getting that, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean, people just don't they just don't communicate. And some people don't know how to communicate certain things. So it's just a, you know, sometimes it's a tough situation. If no one ever taught you how to do something, how are you going to learn?
Right.
You didn't see it while you were growing up. I mean, and your friends, they don't know what they're doing. You know, they trying to figure out just like you trying to figure out. You know, so if you don't learn from somebody that's been there and done that, and if you didn't see it while you were growing up, you're gonna be just all over the place out here.
Yeah, it's so true. So true. So what is one of the biggest mistakes men make whenever they're dating?
I think they think that women have it all figured out.
Yeah.
They think that women have it all figured out, like they got it all together, like they're all organized. She knows what she wants.
Yeah.
They assume too much. Nobody has everything figured out. We're all work in progress.
Right.
You know, a lot of guys assume that, hey, she's out of my league. I'm like, whose league? Whose league are you talking about? You know? It's like, just because she's attractive or she's not the ideal woman he would date, he's like, oh, she would never talk to somebody like me. I mean, how do you know? You know?
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest mistakes, you know.
That's true. That's true.
So, since that's one of the biggest mistakes, what is one of the most important skills that you think every man should have or should try to have?
I would say your your social skills. And also, every man, even women, we need to work on ourselves, our inner selves,
Mm.
you know, and because a lot of times we're looking for something and we don't have it. So this is why I always say, try to be the best you can be at any given time, at any given moment. And, you know, that's going to give off a certain vibe when you're out and about talking to people, and men and women, they'll be able to pick up on that.
Yeah.
And, you know, the best part about this is you never have to start all over again, because it's like you're always growing, you're always getting better. But if you try to look good on the outside and you don't take care of the inside, well, you're gonna have to keep starting all over, because you can't outlive your self-image of yourself. It's impossible. You know, and everything you do in life is probably, it could be getting a new job, starting a new business, or everything you start, it's gonna crash, because you don't really know who you are. You don't really have a foundation to, it's nothing solid. It's kind of like you're a fraud,
True.
you know?
True. It's hard work. So with that being said, please explain why you think men should wait to their 35 at least to get married.
Well, I think in the 20s, we don't really know who we are. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, if I think about me, I'm like when I was 25, even late 20s, I would say by the time I was 32, that's when I finally figured out who I was and what I wanted to do and where I was going. So I think a lot of times we need time and we need room to grow. Now, some people would say, well, how come y'all can't grow together? I haven't really seen it work out like that way. I've seen people grow apart,
Yeah.
you know, but I think, and plus, you know, when people get married in their 20s, you know, they have kids. So, and then that's very difficult. You got the kids and you have two adults. So how you gonna find time to, it's difficult for people to find time to, you know, just go down the street when they have kids. So, and plus, I think in the 20s for a lot of guys, it's a lot of responsibility for a lot of guys. And I don't really think, I think a lot of guys think they thought they could handle it.
Yeah.
But a lot of it, you know, it's a lot to handle. It's a lot to handle when it comes to having a family. And I think a lot of guys, even women, they kind of underestimate how much time, effort, energy, and work it takes.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, because at both sides, you find yourself losing yourself.
Yeah.
You know, in the process, you really do.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's no like blueprint of marriage or family, or I mean, you can have any type of family you want, but there's no one really. I know my parents didn't. You know, they didn't tell me, hey, this is how you do your with your wife and your kids. No, because they came from a different time.
Yeah.
And they knew that some of the stuff they did wasn't gonna work for me, because this is a different time. You know. True. And I'm not like my parents. No, not even 50%. Not yet anyway. I'm still working on it.
Okay.
No. Okay. So why should men take what women say with a grain of salt, especially when it's a heated argument?
Because I think a lot of times women don't really mean it sometimes. Maybe if you in a heated argument, that's just emotions. So she might not really mean it. It's like, because next week it could change.
Yeah.
I mean, you might say something or you might do something and it could change. You just never know, That's why I don't really take it serious. I mean, I do take it serious, but not serious as far as if I was talking to a guy. That's why I say that.
Okay. So I'm just thinking here. So say you're in that heated argument, and a man's point, he says, I'm just gonna take it with a grain of salt. I'm not gonna really reflect on what she's feeling, what she's saying at the moment. And the relationship ends up and fails. So what then? Why do a lot of the relationships fail?
Well, I try not to argue. I'll listen to her, let her get everything she needs to get out. I'll try not to argue. I try to get down to I try to understand where all this is coming from. And I've been in situations like that. And sometimes some relationships can't be saved because it's too much has happened over a long period of time. And sometimes it might be best for y'all to go y'all separate ways.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I try, you can't win an argument. So I just listen, try to understand where she's coming from. And hopefully, I'll be able to help change the situation or whatever. But there's some relationships that just can't be saved. Sometimes some people are just not compatible. And then you have certain sometimes some people are just not for certain people. Like some people don't have the capacity to be with certain people. Certain things some people just can't do. I just can't do that. Sometimes it might go against their belief or their religion if they into a religion or whatever. So sometimes that's just how it is sometimes.
It's true. Very true.
I think a lot of people just don't have that compassionate understanding for each other, just to see where that person is at and be to where in the argument, take it from their point of view. And then also how you feel and try and come to a mutual understanding. I'm seeing that with a lot of couples, especially military couples, with my husband being in the Air Force. A lot of times they don't want to see each other's point of view at all, to where they have no foundation of communication. And if you don't have that along, like you said before, with the love and the respect of each other, it does not turn out very well. It gets ugly.
Yeah, especially being in the military. The military is a very fast environment. Things happen very quickly, and that environment doesn't support marriage. It just doesn't. I'm not saying that people don't stay. They don't stay married, but it's not gonna be the way you want it to be. because it's too many moving parts. And you can get orders at any given time to go somewhere. And if maybe your workstation, wherever you station, that's not working out. So things could change very rapidly. And then in the military, they don't, the military comes first, period.
Yeah.
They don't really care about your wife and your kids. Yeah, they'll transport you or whatever. They'll give you whatever, but they don't really care about that. The military is first, and anything else is next or last.
And if you don't have that foundation and communication at all, it's just only going to pull the both of you apart even faster. And I've seen that happen to where the communication's not there. If work isn't stable already, then you go home and home isn't stable. Then they hate going home. They hate going to work. It falls apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's some women, they just didn't understand what they signed up for.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
True.
it's
Very true.
kind of like an athlete's wife. Maybe her husband's a football player,
Yeah.
a basketball player, and
Yeah.
they travel. Especially basketball. Sometimes they travel every other day in a different city.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, the wife is home with the kids all the time, and maybe she gets overwhelmed, and then the husband comes home and she's complaining to him about how tired and burned out she is. And a lot of times, a lot of women, they thought they could handle it. But when they get into it, it's like, oh, I can't do it. This is too much.
Mm-hmm.
And then, that happens a lot.
And the same for if you have a spouse or a significant other that's in the music industry.
Oh,
A lot of times you're gonna be at home alone while they're out on the road or doing different gigs and stuff. So you have to have that communication. And going back to very beginning, you have to be able to respect each other. And you have to also allow, even though that spouse isn't there all the time, you still have to give them that respect that they need in that position of authority that they should have. So you definitely have to do that.
I want to add one more thing for anyone that's listening or watching that has someone in the military. You've also got to, this is something I thought about whenever me and my husband first got married, is that argument really worth that argument? Because knowing the fact that they could be shipped out at any time, something can happen at any time, is that the last memory that you want with your loved one of that argument? Is it really truly worth it? Is it to where it's going to change your relationship enough? Is it something that you two could just calmly talk about to where it doesn't need to be an argument? Because that argument could be the last thing you have with that person, and then they be gone.
Yeah.
And then your whole world has changed. And then you have to sit there with the regret of, did I really need to have that argument? And did I get a chance to tell that person that I love them?
So true. So true.
To me, it's not worth it.
Yeah. So true. So you want me to okay. So Sharp, I want to ask you this too. Tell our those that are listening and watching, tell them a little bit about your books.
Well, okay, the first book was basically a chicken's guide to having women bake for you, sex, lust, and lies. That book is all about your social skills, basically. I told a lot of stories when I went to college and how I hung around the athletes, football players, and how I got introduced to like a different world, versus where I came from in South Carolina. That book was more of a social book, full of stories, about my experiences being in college and everything, and being naive to how college life really is, And the second book, Love Can't Wait, it's more of a personal development book, not so much a dating book, even though I disguise it as a dating book, but it's really a personal development book. And that's really all about becoming a better you, becoming a better man, better husband, a better son, and just working on yourself, trying to be the best you can be, because if you don't take care of yourself, you're no good for anybody. You're always going to be, it's just not going to work out in the long run if you don't take care of yourself first.
So true. So true. So how has your reading audience perceived your work I mean, because the knowledge and the insight that you have to give is what's very valuable. It's very valuable.
Actually, they love it. You know, and I always say, you know, I never wanted to write a book. I
Mm.
never wanted to write a book. I never wanted to give advice. I just started doing it because people kept asking me about certain places I traveled, certain places I've been, and my experiences. But people have loved it. I think the my second book, Love Can't Wait, that sold more than the other two books. You know, so I was even I'm still surprised sometimes.
Well, we can tell you that women like hearing from men when it comes to relationship more so than anything, because we're learning, we're growing by what you have to say, and believe it or not, eventually it'll get to the point that where enough women absorb it, it can change for the relationship between the man and the woman.
Yeah.
So how can everyone get a copy of your book, and women get to, I shouldn't say just women, well, men too, get to learn more about you and who you are?
If you want to find my books, you can go to Amazon.com or just go to my website at chooseyourrelationships.com.
Okay. And we'll post everything for everyone so they can go there as well, so they can get to know you. We really enjoy this, really have.
Appreciate it.
I want to thank you, Mr. Lopez, for being with us so much. And I hope that this knowledge helps everyone else that's out there with their relationship as well.
Yes.
And to our watchers and listeners, please don't forget to check out our social media outlets. And also, please hit that like and subscribe button, as we don't want you to miss out on our special guests or great topics. And we want to thank you all for tuning in.